Sup, Jake here. If you're wondering why I'm wearing a shirt today, that's because this, ladies, gentlemen, and people not conforming to binary gender, this is my coming out video. When we talk about coming out, we associate it mostly with sexuality and with gender identity. And I think there were many times in my life where I came out. I came out to people every time I thought that there was a significant change in my feelings or a moment of self-discovery. So I had about 3 or 4 coming out moments. Let's start off with sexuality. When I was 11 or 12, I was just starting secondary school in year 7, and I thought girls were really pretty. I had a crush on a girl when I was about 12. When I started to question my sexuality, I talked to her about it because she was openly bisexual, and there weren't many people that were open about their sexuality at that age, but no one was ever hateful about it. No one really got down on anyone. I think the bullying in my secondary school based on sexuality was extremely unheard of, and when it was heard of, it was more just gossiping, people thinking it was weird, not liking it, and no one ever got beat up for it, which was great. I came out to my mum as bisexual, I think it was before I had a girlfriend, but I got my first girlfriend when I was 13, and I came out to her again then, and I was like, by the way, I'm dating this girl, and my mum really did not like her. When I was dating this girl, I think for a while I thought I was a lesbian, because obviously I was identifying as female, and I went to an all-girls school up until year 11, when I was 16. So I did think I was a lesbian, but after that I discovered that pansexual was a thing when I was about 15, and I was like, yes, I am pansexual. When I started to question my gender and I came out as being male, I thought I was gay, like 100% homosexual gay male. Then I sort of settled down a bit and became a lot more comfortable with my gender identity and started identifying as pansexual again. So I am definitely 100% pansexual, just to get my sexuality all cleared up. Coming out as trans was a completely different story. It was a much more lengthy process, and the reason I didn't really go into detail about how it came out sexuality-wise was mostly because it was just like, hey, I'm this, and no one really cared, no one said anything. So I think I'm really lucky that I was in a generation and an environment of people who just didn't mind that I wasn't straight. I started questioning my gender identity when I moved to college in September 2012, so it really wasn't that long ago that I came to terms with this, and I haven't even hit my 2-year mark yet, but it's coming up soon. I would have been transitioning for 2 years. I slowly began to transition at the beginning of the college year. I started thinking more actively about what gender meant to me, about how I related to it, how I always felt about it, and I never remembered having distinct feelings of fitting in with the female gender and of identifying with the female gender. I thought a lot about my clothes and about the way I dressed and presented to other people, and I realised that a lot of my favourite clothes were the clothes that my brothers gave to me, or the ones that my mum was gonna throw out and I just thought, that's cool, I'm gonna have that. So my favourite clothes were male clothes. I began feeling extremely dysphoric, and I think it was because I realised that my gender was not something I'd actively thought about in a positive light, and then I started feeling all these horrible, overwhelming negative feelings towards my whole body, and it hit me like a fucking tsunami of negativity. And I had struggled with depression and with self-harm for this whole time, and I'd never really known what it was related to. I didn't understand where it came from. I know that I harbored a lot of self-hate, but I never knew and understood what it was. And I think in that moment I understood that I hurt myself because I wasn't okay with myself. And when I started to feel like I am male, I started to feel okay with myself again, or for the first time ever. I chopped all my hair off and it was the best fucking day of my goddamn life. I felt on top of the world for so long. I was so happy about it. I always had really, really long hair. I think the shortest I ever got it was shoulder length. My mum knew I was getting it cut, but she thought it was, a pixie cut like Emma Watson or something. And I went to the hairdressers and I was like, cut it all off. And admittedly it did go to a sort of pixie cut, and it was still fairly long, but it was a huge step. And I thought, I don't know whether this is going to look any good. I don't know whether this is going to make me feel happy about myself. This might just ruin everything. But I thought, fuck it. Hats and wigs exist for a reason. So if it looks terrible, who cares? Hair grows back. When I started thinking about what term I associated myself with, I chose the word transmasculine because I thought it was a lot less commitment than identifying as FTM transgender. When I looked up FTM, there were so many people who were so upset, who just felt like they didn't want to be alive anymore, that they would rather be dead than identify as FTM. And that hurt. That really hurt to think that I might feel the same as those people. And I just shunned the term. I thought, I don't want that attached to me, because that's going to mean that I want all these surgeries and all of this hormone treatment. How am I supposed to cope with that? How would I ever be brave enough to go along this medical journey and to fight with doctors and psychiatrists and my parents? I knew this feeling wouldn't go away, and I knew that I was going to be like this for the rest of my life. But I finally accepted that FTM is what I am. And when I did that, it was like a sigh of relief. I was still terrified, but I knew that I had to be at peace with it, otherwise I'd never move forward. I started coming out to my friends, and I barely heard a negative word. I had 2 or 3 people who didn't like it and didn't want to call me my chosen name, so I was just like, fuck you. One of the ways I got support for this was I talked to my friend Blaine online a lot, and he made me feel so much more at ease with the fact that I was trans. I think one of the first people I came out to sort of outside of the internet was Leisha, and she was the best. Literally saved me at college. If I didn't have her to lean on, I would have gone crazy. I started going to a trans group sort of not long after that, actually. I had a friend at college who was, struggling with gender issues of their own, and they'd found this group. So I, put her along to this group thinking, maybe it's gonna help, and I made so many trans friends, and a lot of them are still, with me today. Are still people that I can talk to whenever I need to, people that I sometimes rely on and know that I can rely on because they have supported me and they've been my friends ever since I joined that group. I changed my name, I went to my GP, and my GP then referred me onto a mental health clinic. I got assessed, and after 1 hour appointment, they sent me straight onto the gender clinic, which was the Tavistock because I was still under 18, but it was at the Laurels Gender Clinic in Exeter, but I was technically not in their care. Complicated. When I came out to my mum, the actual point of this video, when I came out to my mum, I was bricking it. She didn't like it. She didn't understand it, she blamed herself, she did the whole guilt thing. She made it feel like it was my fault, that it was something I was choosing and I was inflicting on everyone else, and that it totally wasn't fair for me to be open about my feelings. We fought about it, we fight about it a lot. There was one conversation where she turned around to me and said, "You will never be a boy. I will never call you Jake. You will never be my son." And after that, I walked out the door, went away for 4 days, went and stayed with Leisha. Thank you. I love you for that. And after that, we just didn't talk about it. When I came out to my dad, I was sat at the top of Burger King. I remember this really vividly. We went out for lunch in town because I was like, I really need to talk to you. And I think the last time I did that, we went to McDonald's and I told him that I was, self-harming, and we had a big conversation about that. But this time, it was obviously slightly different. I was shaking so hard, literally my whole body was just vibrating with fear, and when it came down to it, I couldn't actually say what was wrong, what I was trying to tell him, so I made him guess. He started obviously focusing on the fact that I'd been dressing and presenting more male, and obviously he noticed that and he picked up on that. When it finally all came out that I was trans, he just hugged me and told me that he would always love me for who I am. My dad slowly came to terms with it a few months later and started calling me Jake. He came along to a trans support group meeting with me, and he met loads of people, and they were all thoroughly impressed with how quick and how well my dad had managed to come to terms with it. He's been the biggest support in my life. He has done all the reading. I gave him a pretty thick book to read about a trans guy and his mother. He read the whole thing. The rest of my family, my siblings and step-siblings, they still kind of don't know about it. They obviously, in the last year or so, they've seen how much I've changed and how much I've pulled away from family life, because it's been too hard for me to try and cope with that, with the rejection I've received from my mother. It's just been extremely hard to think about coming out to them. I'm making a goal that by the end of this year, I will come out to my step-family. I will document this journey as much as I can, and hopefully it will help some of you people out there in the internet. So far, I've had a couple of appointments with Tavistock. I'll be referred over to the Laurels clinic soon. I think I've had 3 appointments in total, and one of those was with my mother. I cancelled my 4th appointment, which was supposed to be with my mother, because I thought it was an utter waste of time. Just taking her up there would just be a negative experience that I didn't want in my life and I didn't need. So I'm still waiting to hear about my 4th appointment. Hopefully they'll send me straight on to the Laurels. If not, that might set my journey back a couple of months, but as long as I get there, I don't care how long I have to wait. My name is legally changed to Jake Nathaniel Carter Edwards, and that is how I identify full-time. And everyone outside of this house and outside of this small family unit has been utterly amazing and supportive to me, and I want to thank every single person who has been there on this journey with me. Sorry this was such a mammoth of a video, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took something away with you from this video. Maybe it's just that I ramble and I'm very awkward, but still, my coffee got cold. Peace out, bitches.